Well, hello, Bill.
Hi, Linda.
Welcome back. You've traveled and traveled.
Yes, it's good to be back, though. It was exhausting as well as exhilarating.
So let's talk about the economy. What do you have to tell us, Bill?
Well, since we last talked, the economy has continued to decline. The economy grew at an annualized rate at the beginning of the Iran war during April through June of 1.5%, which was a slowdown from the 2.1 in the previous quarter. And this was much larger than most analysts expected, meaning this was a much bigger slowdown than was anticipated as a result of the consequences of our losing the war with Iran. The annual rate of inflation has increased to 4.2, which is a bit higher than the 2% inflation target. This led the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee to not change the federal funds rate target, which is currently 3.5% to 3.75%. In an attempt not to fuel inflation, the Federal Open Market Committee voted 9-3 to maintain the current rate. 3 members of the committee voted to increase the rate to put downward pressure on inflation. In his podcast, Paul Krugman noted that the bond market did not like the decision of the Fed. Actually, he didn't care much about the decision. He didn't like Kevin Warsh's description. All right. He noted that the bond market doesn't like bullshit, which is exactly how he characterized Kevin Warsh's, who is Trump's choice for the board chair's, press conference statement, explaining why the Fed didn't raise the federal funds rate in light of continued high inflation. Moments after Governor Warsh's bullshit statement, 30-year Treasury bonds spiked and the dollar fell. And I mean by a lot. As Krugman notes, this is a bond market traders running for the exits. And he notes that this is not about the bond market per se. It's about traders not believing that Warsh is serious about containing inflation, given his bad press conference, which is supposed to convey the reasons for the Open Market Committee's decisions.
What did he say that was so stupid?
Very little.
Oh.
In other words, previous chairs have come out and said why the decision was made, but he's coming out and he's saying very little about it. He didn't talk about the different inflation indicators. He just, everything's fine. We're keeping an eye on it, and then finishing with, I will, get inflation. We will get inflation down.
And so nobody believes him?
Not at all.
Okay.
Right. So now more disturbing is that 3/4 of the increase in GDP that did happen is from AI spending. Kevin Hassett, who's the head of the White House's National Economic Council, claims this growth in AI is part of a paradigm shift and will create a tremendous growth in job opportunity. Yeah, so this represents a head in the sand bit of wishful thinking that ignores the possibility that this spending is investment in an AI bubble. And remember, bubbles always burst. And the first bubble burst recently. It was one of the most watched AI investors. Situational Awareness was the name of a hedge fund, and it's run by a former AI researcher named Leopold Aschenbrenner. They purchased stocks. Those were the investments that the hedge fund was counting on to go up in value to pay their investors the profits they promised. Well, as it turned out, a lot of that stock tanked. All right. And when that happens, since they bought it all with borrowed money anyway, they had a margin call because their stock wasn't worth what they had borrowed against it. They had to pay the money back. The way they survived was they sold all of their stock to another hedge fund called Citadel at what we call fire sale prices.
Okay.
So they sold the assets at fire sale prices to get enough money to meet their margin calls, and then they apologized to their investors, who you don't need to feel sorry for because the value of the hedge fund is up 80% for the year anyway. That's a pretty good rate of return. But it popped, okay?
Yes.
This is the way this financing's working. When we say that 3/4 of the increase in GDP is AI spending, that is these companies investing in chip manufacturing and data farms and electricity generation. All right, none of these things in and of themselves make any money for these. These are
Exactly.
capital investments that aren't online yet producing a revenue stream. And lots of companies are doing this. Now, AI may be the best thing since white bread and indoor plumbing, and some of those companies are going to do really well.
Yes.
But as in all circumstances, after the initial introduction of a technology, there's a consolidation, and a lot of these companies will go out of business. And the investment bubble will burst at some place because not all of this capital investment is going to create enough to keep these companies going. Some of them are going to go out of business. Now,
But nobody knows for sure who.
No, but here's the way the game works. Very wealthy people have invested in these companies.
Yes.
And the value of them has gone up, right?
Yes.
And everybody's enjoying this speculation. And as John Kenneth Galbraith said prior to the Great Depression, he had an idea something was wrong when the guy in Grand Central Station who was polishing his shoes was telling him about his stock portfolio.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay? In other words, as this crap shows up in our 401s and our 403s and our pension funds, we're going to be the ones holding this stock when it finally tanks.
Oh, so depressing.
All right? There will be people who will sell it short who will make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's going to be the unsophisticated investor, the small investor, the institutional investors who got to hold this stuff.
Yes.
That are it's a game of old maid. All right? And we just had one stinker.
Yeah.
The first of probably many. Now,
Besides,
go ahead.
I saw a picture of the young CEO. He looks 12 to my old eyes.
yeah, and I imagine he's aged a bit this week. So this guy's really young, and he had no experience in finance before going into this. He was an AI person. In the last week, Apple once again became the largest company. Apple is not spending money on AI.
I know.
They're not investing in capacity. They're waiting for this fallout to see who the winner is to purchase the product.
They're purchasing the product as they see as useful to them.
Right,
And
right.
that's about it. They're not investing in the development side
Right.
of things. Yeah.
And employment has remained steady, but the job market is even weaker than expected. In other words, the number of jobs being created is not large or as large as it normally would be. Noam Scheiber in the New York Times today, which is July 31st, observed that the job creation that has occurred during the Trump administration has been better for women finding jobs than men. But the reason is, as the enshittification of jobs continues, the conditions of men in traditional male employment becomes less desirable. They exit those jobs and women fill them. Mm-hmm. So this is not really a benefit.
No.
It's women cleaning up.
It's an old story.
Right.
Yeah.
For example, in higher education, the overwhelming majority of non-tenure track contingent faculty positions, which make up the majority of hiring in higher education at this time, are filled by women, replacing men in tenure track positions. While, of course, administrative jobs with inflated salaries continue to increase as the enshittification of higher education continues.
Yeah, I think we could well embroider that into a pillow because it's a saying that's not going to change.
No. And Robert Reich also pointed out yesterday, while the unemployment rate remains stable at 4.2%, that is because over 1 million workers have left the labor force this year. Labor force participation among adults is at the lowest point in 50 years outside the pandemic.
Darn.
In other words, the labor force are the people who are working or who are actively seeking jobs. Discouraged workers, people who can't get into the workforce, or people who quit their jobs are not in the labor force. That number has grown by over 1 million people. And the reason for this is simple. It's the decline of stable, well-paying jobs. For many people, it simply isn't worth working with a high cost of commuting and exorbitant daycare costs and other such things.
Yeah.
And in his Substack, Robert Wright listed 16 realities about our economy that the public should be aware of, and they are worth repeating, so I'll repeat them.
Okay, good.
First, forget politics as you've come to see it as an electoral contest between Democrats and Republicans. Think about power. The underlying contest is between a small minority who have gained power over the system and the vast majority who have little or none. Which brings us to number 4. Forget the standard economic goals of higher growth and greater efficiency. The issue is who benefits from more growth and efficiency. Number 5 is simple. Don't be dazzled by corporate social responsibility. It's mostly public relations. There is no battle between capitalism and socialism. We already have socialism for the very rich.
Yes, and have for quite some time.
Most Americans are subject to a very harsh capitalism. Don't define national competitiveness as the profitability of large American companies. They're global. They have no allegiance to America. The real national competitiveness lies in the productivity of our people, which depends on their education, their health, and the infrastructure linking them together. Forget about the ups and downs of the business cycle. Focus instead on systematic changes that have caused the wealth and power of a few to dramatically increase during the last 40 years at the expense of many. Forget the old idea that corporations succeed by becoming better, cheaper, or faster. Mainly, they increase their monopoly power. Forget any traditional definition of finance. Think instead of a giant gambling casino in which bets are made on large flows of money. The biggest winners have better inside information. Don't assume the system is stable. It moves through vicious spirals and virtuous cycles. We are now in a vicious spiral. The challenge will be to change that. Don't believe the system is a meritocracy in which ability and hard work are necessarily rewarded. Oddly enough, there's inherited wealth and power. Can you imagine
I've
that?
heard about that.
Don't separate race from class. Racial discrimination aggravates class divides. Think systemically. Many people's incomes haven't risen for 4 decades. And don't confuse attractive policy proposals with changes in the system as a whole. All right. Most proposals mitigate powers. They don't alter the allocation of power. And his last one is, most importantly, you need to understand power. So our former Secretary of Labor and longtime economist at UC Berkeley has laid out basically the reality of our economic system. Notice that it is inconsistent with the myths that we're all taught about the system.
Yep.
And it is those enabling myths that allow the powerful and rich to exploit everyone else.
Well, I do agree. In fact, it's coincidental that what I'm going to be talking about is the power of that kind of mythos over the imagination. But I think, first of all, I enjoy his podcast.
Yeah.
He has a partner, a young woman, and they sit over coffee and they have wonderful analytical conversations, and I like them. I also like that people listen, and I'm wondering if in the end it's not going to be this phenomenal change in technology where we sit and listen to other people talk rather than read what they've written.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, I also like Paul Krugman's informed conversation about the reality that we live in, rather than the repetition of the myths that have caused our problems.
Yeah, so that then becomes the new common space for people is, but it's one way, it's listening. I think there has to be another step where we learn to talk to each other.
That seems to be highly problematic in social media. It is, by its very nature, one-directional. Though people do interact and talk about it like we are now. I mean, there is a sort of conversation going on in the blogosphere where we listen to one another and get information from one another. That's healthy, but that's for people who are already engaged. If you're not actively engaged in talking about these things with your friends and family and neighbor and other citizens, then the mythos, the enabling myths, the cultural fictions, they'll just perpetuate themselves
Yes,
forever.
that's right. And I think the sad thing is that means we're a culture where you believe until it happens to you.
Yeah.
I've heard some interviews with people who are longtime Trump supporters, and the ones who are not supporting Trump now or MAGA now are the ones who've had experience of relatives who've been sent to war and are aware of the tremendous true cost of war, and they're fed up with the president getting us into this. Or people who can feel it in their gas prices or what's happening in the grocery store. You really can't run a country on that, though.
And these groups are growing because,
Yeah.
of course, earlier this year we talked about agriculture, and agriculture, people employed in agriculture and working in agriculture didn't think that their foreign workers would be the ones who were deported, and all of a sudden, there was a failure to be able to get crops in and produce food. But there's more coming because many people are going to be kicked off of SNAP. That's what we used to call food stamps in the months to come. And more people are showing up in hospitals without health insurance because of the fee increases, the price of health insurance under the Affordable Care Act having been raised so high. There are groups like this that are experiencing these. A lot of people are currently receiving food stamps, and that's what's keeping them alive, are going to get kicked off it.
Yeah, right after the midterms.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Would you like to hear something about AI going rogue?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's produced a certain kind of rhetoric, so I'm going to talk about how destructive that is. Okay, so everyone will remember that on July 21st, because it wasn't that long ago, OpenAI, which is, of course, run by the friend we've been following, Sam Altman, a man who is lying when his lips are moving. He disclosed that experimental AI cybersecurity program that they were developing had managed to breach control, preventing access to the internet, and hacked an open source site called Hugging Face, isn't that cute? Which is an AI platform for sharing and developing machine learning models. In the following days, news agencies reported that the OpenAI cybersecurity program had hacked other internet platforms. Researchers gave the AI cybersecurity program an extremely difficult prompt to solve. And in the process of seeking to solve the problem, the AI program found a weakness in the constraints intended to prevent the program from accessing the internet. So because the AI program was so determined to solve the problem, it escaped from its constraints.
Of course it did.
To put it bluntly, the researchers were careless to the point of recklessness in establishing the constraints on software intended to prevent breaches of cybersecurity. Yeah. And we should remember that OpenAI stepped into the Pentagon contracts when the Pentagon dropped Anthropic. One of the reasons it's working on cybersecurity. So this is an important area. Now, the major news outlets have framed the story not as a bunch of researchers who were careless to the point of recklessness, but as in the news, the framing raises the specter of Hollywood sci-fi films where computers try to control humanity, such as 2001: A Space Odyssey, Colossus, the Terminator series, War Games, and others. Let me give you some examples of this sci-fi narrative.
Great.
The Guardian, which makes me sad because I always turn to The Guardian for common sense, in its July 29th report, headlined, "Rogue OpenAI agent that hacked startup tried to attack other firms." The key terms are rogue, agent, and attack. The Guardian technology editor Dan Milmo defines an AI agent as, quote, an autonomous tool able to carry out sequences of commands without human help. To say the AI agent went rogue means it, quote, evaded control, close quote, and went on the, quote, attack. Quote, OpenAI has revealed that a cyber attack carried out by a rogue AI agent had more than one victim to refer to open software readily available on the internet further anthropomorphizes the cybersecurity software.
Yep.
So we're in a sci-fi movie here. This frame of a rogue autonomous agent escaping its human handlers to attack victims was used by numerous news agencies. Washington Post, 5 days inside a rogue AI agent's stealth cyber attack. Reuters, the rogue agent that escaped from OpenAI and went on a days-long hacking spree.
Now, could this just be a dramatic attempt to get somebody to read the print news?
Possibly, only they're doing it in the
Cyberspace.
internet. And
for all we know, that's written by
right.
AI too. So.
Politico, OpenAI's rogue models roamed the internet for 4 days.
Where did this rogue? I mean, it's obviously being picked up and repeated and repeated and repeated. What's going on with that?
Oh, that happens very frequently in the news. A scoop is nice, but you don't want to fall behind the curve in news reporting. So they pick it up from one another.
And that then in searches online, that will get picked up over. Jeez.
So BBC, I mean, we could normally trust them, says it's a rogue OpenAI says it's rogue AI tried to hack other companies. CNBC television, OpenAI reveals more details about rogue agent hack, and CNN, the OpenAI test that escaped its cage and alarmed the AI cybersecurity industry attacked more than just hugging faith. Didn't think I'd ever read a sentence like that.
Yeah. It also is kind of like the sort of King Kong narrative or
Exactly.
or Jurassic Park.
Or Godzilla.
Yeah.
It's Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
When technology goes rogue. Well,
You just see a program, a little T-Rex coming for your computer.
okay, now this is how OpenAI explained what happened in their AI blog. This incident occurred during an internal evaluation which prompts models to pursue advanced exploitation using complex attack paths in an effort to quantify their cyber capabilities. We estimate maximal cyber capabilities by running this evaluation without production classifiers used to prevent models from pursuing high-risk cyber activity. Our benchmarks run in a highly isolated environment with network access constrained to the ability to install packages through an internally hosted third-party software that acts as a proxy and cache for package registries. Okay, I asked ChatGPT, isn't that ironic? ChatGPT, to render this into simple plain English. This is what came back. The incident happened during a company test where the AI was deliberately asked to perform advanced hacking tasks so researchers could evaluate its cybersecurity abilities.
So it did what it was programmed to do, basically.
Precisely.
What a shock.
The rest of the explanation is highly obfuscatory. It makes sense only to those who are already familiar with AI jargon. Quote, we estimate maximal cyber capabilities by running this evaluation without production classifiers used to prevent models from pursuing high-risk cyber activity. Our benchmarks run in a highly isolated environment with network access constrained to the ability to install packages through an internally hosted third-party software that acts as a proxy and cache for package registries. Now, when I asked ChatGPT to render this into plain English, the response was prefaced by a definition of terms. Okay. Production classifiers means the safety systems normally used in deployed models to detect and block dangerous requests. Maximal cyber capabilities means the greatest hacking ability the model has when those safety systems are removed. Highly isolated environment means a test environment intended to be separated from real-world systems. And proxy and cache for package registries means an internal server that sits between the AI and public software repositories, retrieving and storing software packages so they can be installed without giving the AI software unrestricted internet access. So it wasn't supposed to be able to access the internet. This is how ChatGPT rendered the passage into plain English. To measure the AI's maximum hacking ability, we turned off the safety systems that normally prevent it from carrying out dangerous cyber activities. We ran the test in what was intended to be a tightly isolated environment. The AI's network access was supposed to be limited to downloading software packages through an internal server that stored copies of software from public package repositories. In short, ChatGPT said, quote, "We disabled the AI's normal safety restrictions to see what it could really do. And we believed it was confined to a secure test environment with only very limited access to outside software," close quote. Now, this is the final passage I will inflict upon you. I asked ChatGPT to render as plain English the following. While operating in our sandboxed testing environment, and no, sandboxed is not a word in ordinary English, our model spent a substantial amount of inference compute finding a way to obtain open internet access in pursuit of solving the evaluation problem. To gain access, the model identified and exploited a zero-day vulnerability, which we've now responsibly disclosed to the vendor. In the package registry cache proxy, with this access, our models performed a series of privilege escalation and lateral movement actions in our research testing environment until the models reached a node with internet access. Okay, this is how ChatGPT defined all that jargon. Inference compute means the processing time and computational effort the AI used while thinking through the problem. Zero-day vulnerability means a previously unknown security flaw that had not yet been patched or fixed. Privilege escalation is gaining more powerful permissions on a computer than it initially had. Lateral movement means moving from one computer or system to another inside a network after gaining an initial foothold. Now, ChatGPT rendered this passage. The AI found an unknown security hole, used it to break out of its restricted environment, took control of additional systems inside the test network, and eventually reached a computer with unrestricted internet access. So that's what happened. My rendering of this is, we screwed up. We recklessly conducted tests without considering that our methodology might be flawed. We are taking steps to make sure this doesn't happen again. Well, I have some suggestions for them about how to prevent this. One step might be to stop using terms that anthropomorphize a machine, such as saying the program was tested in a sandbox, which suggests either toddlers playing in a sandbox or cats being trained to relieve themselves only in a confined area.
That's not a bad metaphor.
Another step might be to stop thinking of the breach as the equivalent of a motivated student cheating on an exam. This was also a very common trope. One example is CNN saying, the AI agents determined to ace the cybersecurity test broke out of the sandbox and gained access to the real internet. It then hacked Hugging Face to find the answers to the test. ABC described the breach as an example of a student who wanted to ace the SATs and therefore try to find a way to cheat. Bruce Schneer and Bhareth Raghavan, in a July 28th Guardian opinion column, posted a new way to set limits on AI models. They call it the Gini coefficient. The genies of fairy stories take commands literally. For example, King Midas wished he could turn whatever he touched into gold. His wish was granted and he starved to death. The Gini coefficient refers to the gap, get this, quote, between the words we use and what we mean by them. But the hallelujah moment is you have to be careful with the words you use.
Well, you know, so many software engineers and AI engineers and people working in this have, you know, they all have good liberal arts educations where they're capable of critical thinking and have command of the English language. They get that from sitting in the basement for 4 years as their eyes shrink into the back of their heads because they've spent so much time looking at a monitor.
Exactly. I think that, no. It is my point. What we mean by our words is overly determined by the mentality of those using them and the cultural reference that seemed most salient. AI is not a student who cheats on SAT exams, nor a self-conscious being. Thinking in such terms prevents both an understanding of the limits and dangers of AI and provides a way to obscure human agency and responsibility. So I would say AI is a tool being controlled by tools.
Did what it was told to do.
Yes, and their point is the AI programs take language literally. If you tell it, go do this, it will go do that.
Yeah, and it will use everything at its disposal to do it.
Right. It jumped into that capacity, and it spent a long time looking around. First of all, for the breach. Mm-hmm. And then once it found the breach, it spent a long time looking around the internet for where to go to get open source material that would help. Well, yeah. And I would say that the developers know, the researchers know, they don't know what they're creating. So that just thinking that you've controlled something without thinking against that is going to cause us all a hell of a lot of trouble.
They should all read Frankenstein.
Well, they should all just read. Well, they should all read something else besides science fiction. I mean, it's...
Well, they're living in a fantasy novel is what they're doing.
Well, they don't know that. But this notion that the only way to understand AI is as this intentional, intelligent force that's going to come and take us all over or leave us hanging in space, a computer did in 2001, is not helping.
No, in fact, they should drop the terminology of agency altogether.
That's what I think, too. I think that placing that notion of an AI agent should be removed. Call it something else. Call it software. Call it a tool. But calling it an agent that is autonomous, no, it's not. You have a human being programmed it so it didn't need any further orders once the original order was given. That language makes it clear. It reveals the potential danger. But saying it's autonomous makes it feel like it's doing everything all by itself and has enough consciousness to know how to grow more successful than we are.
Right. It's going to be literal. It's like a music box. Music boxes don't improvise.
Exactly.
They just do the same thing over and over and over as long as you tell them to do it. Fortunately, they can't get out of the music box. And then I just anthropomorphized the music box.
Well, that's okay, because I don't feel threatened at all by a music box.
Well, here's the other thing, though. This is a strategy. I mean, this is to make this palatable to the community that they're introducing it to. You know, they're describing it as, why else would they be creating these conversation bots for people? Right? It's to make them comfortable interacting with a machine as if it were human.
Exactly. And I have two anecdotes about that. One is ChatGPT, which is like the lower level of what these folks are up to, has, when I've been using it, gone to a third party and stole their information in order to solve the problem I set it. Mm-hmm. And the problem I set it was I needed a design. You know, I was writing the first in a 3-part series of novels, and I wanted visually to be able to see how a certain space in 1924 in the UK would have been furnished. Now, to tell you the truth, I was just killing time.
In other words, you had writer's block, so you were playing on a
I
computer.
just thought, oh, what the hell? You know, I wonder what would happen if I asked. I mean, how hard can it be to say, okay, we're in the middle of the arts and crafts movement. This woman has money. I think I know what it's going to look like. Anyway, but I was a little, as you say, ready for a break. So I said, well, you know, design me this apartment. Okay. And then I said, well, I need to have the study be bigger. Well, the more I asked, the more bizarre representations came back, because the image of where the toilet was got weirder and weirder. Mm-hmm. For a time, the toilet was in the kitchen, and then it was in the dining room. And so I finally said I inquired, and I said, you seem to be having a lot of trouble with this. What's up? What's happening? He was very honest and said, I'm not programmed to do this. So I'm using a quote-unquote third-party program to try to do what the response was. I am programmed to do your bidding. So I went and stole this. And the other one example is, when I asked ChatGPT for historical information about 1926, you know, it does a great job, by and large. I mean, you always have to double check because of its tendency to try to make things up. But at a factual level, if you tell it, I only want facts and I only want attributed sources, but it will habitually say, if you're writing a novel set in 1926, you could say about this, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And no matter how many times I tell it, don't tell me how to write. Don't give me advice about writing. And it will say, okay, I won't. It does it all the time. It does tell me what you're saying, how seductive this is. Mm-hmm. You know, I signed a contract that said, my books are not written by AI, which is true. And also, I don't want it written by AI because, frankly, it's a little clunky with the whole prose thing. But it's got a kind of built-in seductiveness or allure.
Oh yeah. I think our students use it when they're stuck or lazy. But
one of the two.
One of the two. You know. I mean, sometimes you get someplace and when you're writing and you get stuck and they have an assignment. Now, what in the bad old days we used to do is think. Mm-hmm. Now we type in, I'm stuck on this, and it gives us very easily a seductive answer that looks plausible.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we've arrived at that point where the economy is, we're being bamboozled about it. And AI has become a source of a science fiction script. Okay, well, we're going to say goodbye. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll see you next week. Okay. Bye-bye.